I do think the biggest takeaway from what we've heard so far is around North Korea. The two leaders, President Trump and South Korea's leader, both expressing sort of shared optimism on, making progress with North Korea. So, we'll have to wait and see sort of what comes together around there. President Trump mentioned, that he might be heading to South Korea very soon, which could ultimately lead to a meeting potentially with North Korea's leader. So, anytime North Korea gets mentioned here at the White House, it's definitely one of those things that people get very excited about. So, South Korea came in today to talk about trade. It's not surprising that North Korea came up and sort of took over on the trade conversations.
Skylar, of course we know that South Korea is a major trading partner here for the United States. What is the president looking for more broadly from its conversations with South Korea?
Yeah, so what we saw from the trade deal between South Korea and the U.S., South Korea had floated a $350 billion investment fund. So what we're trying to, sort out today is where does that fund stand, and sort of just defining, how much that's going to be and sort of what that looks like. What we've heard so far is South Korea today mentioned a $150 billion investment around shipbuilding. President Trump said that the U.S. Would be buying ships from South Korea, and then South Korea, vice versa, would then be building ships here in the U.S. So, that's sort of been President Trump's goal all along, is to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. through tariffs. So we're still waiting to sort of see what those details actually look like. But so far, that's sort of what we have been able to understand around what this meeting has concluded.
Like instances in the past when it comes to the president and what he said on social media about somebody, things change a little bit when they're actually side by side. Can you explain the way that the president talked a little bit about South Korean politics on social media, but then sort of eased those concerns when he was with the president?
Totally. I think that post we saw this morning is sort of true Trump fashion. It's no secret that he, constantly posts on Truth Social, on his social media account. And that is what we saw today with the reports coming out of South Korea. President Trump sort of gave his opinion on where he was, on sort of how he evaluated what was going on. And then in the meeting, definitely felt like there was sort of an easing of, what was going on in South Korea. So, there's still a lot of questions on sort of where President Trump stands on what is going on in South Korea. So I think we'll have to sort of wait and see and sort of closely follow that development there.
Skylar, you covered the White House. You follow President Trump pretty closely here. Where are we in terms of broad trade talk conversations just outside of South Korea, just generally in terms of all these countries?
Yeah, the deadline was earlier this month, which is crazy that it's now almost September. Time is flying. But what we saw, most of the trade deals were sort of settled on earlier this month. And now what we're seeing still, President Trump has continued to say that these trade deals can continue to be ongoing, and just because there was a deadline and that there was an agreement that if a country comes to the table and is willing to invest a certain amount of money into the U.S., their tariff rate maybe could go down. So I think for the administration, these tariff talks are going to continue, and it's not just going to be sort of a standstill, like this is all done.
So do we expect leaders? A week ago we were sitting here talking about European leaders, sort of this unprecedented visit on behalf of Ukraine. And also trade was mentioned, for better or for worse, at these meetings and the public comments that we got last Monday. Do we expect a constant stream, Skylar, of leaders from around the world making a pilgrimage to the White House in an attempt to get better tariff rates?
That is certainly something we could continue to see. Still all eyes are on, what's going on in China. And even just towards the end of last week, in a complete pivot, the president posted on social media about tariffs on furniture. So obviously countries that, maybe are leading the charge and building furniture might be coming to the table. So, that was sort of an area that came out of left field. And, you just don't know with the president, what sector could be coming next on the line. So whether it's a country or a sector, there's still lots of conversations that are going to be had.
Skylar, of course, we know that the president has really been pushing this idea of a crackdown on crime in the United States. What's the latest there? What are you hearing?
The president today signed 2 executive orders, one in D.C. in Washington and nationwide on ending cashless bail, which is really just sort of the next move in terms of the president going after crime. I mean, this comes shortly after the president launched National Guard troops into the nation's capital as they are making their patrolling, and it sort of just signals what is to come. The president today was asked about, if he plans to send troops into Chicago. He did not give a definitive answer on if that's something he would do, but it definitely is something that is being considered. So only time will tell if that actually happens. I mean, the president, this goes back, a while now to when there were troops deployed to Los Angeles. So the president is certainly sort of making his rounds around the country from Los Angeles now to what's going on in Washington, D.C. So, cities around the country are sort of bracing for, if they could be next.